Oh, I was there, hated the day. The day was a miserable day. I mean, it was a worst royal engagement I ever did, a royal wedding I ever did. And I travelled the world with him, and I did really enjoy working with him. But, you know, now I really don't care if I ever see him again, because the way he's behaved towards the king and our queen and his brother and his sister-in-law is appalling. My life, you know, and then Oprah Winfrey had met them once. She was a guest. The Clooneys, the guests. I mean, never met them before, but they were the guests. And, you know, I thought to myself, this all showbiz rubbish.
He was 85 when he finally said it out loud, and the room went still. The day the world sold as a fairy tale, he calls the worst royal engagement he ever worked. Royal photographer Arthur Edwards, who has traced the family across decades of balcony waves, christenings, weddings, and funerals, says the ceremony that looked pristine on television felt up close, like a production that prized optics over people. He remembers enjoying his years on the road with Harry, but after that day and everything that followed, he admits he no longer cared whether their paths crossed again, not out of bitterness, but because of what he believes the day revealed. Forget the glossy montage. According to Edwards, the carriages, the choir, and the celebrity cutaways masked a slog. Guests were packed into Windsor under a hard sun. Fans fluttered like lifelines, makeup slipped, collars wilted, patience thinned. The broadcast made the heat look romantic. Inside, it felt relentless. Then came the seating plan, and with it, a message no camera angle could hide. People who had carried royal duty for years, senior family figures, decorated veterans, and the quiet machinery that keeps the institution upright, found themselves nudged to the back. Meanwhile, famous faces with glancing connections floated to the front like a moving red carpet. Edwards says it felt less like a family ceremony and more like a premiere. The press, he says, didn't just draw the short straw. They were kept at a distance by design. Settings were built for long lenses. Colleagues worked on extreme focal lengths just to capture basic arrivals. Positions spaced far from the heartbeat moments that usually make royal images breathe. At the pass that should have delivered a classic carriage shot, the newlyweds faced the other way. For a man who has photographed Charles and Diana, William and Catherine, and so many hospital steps and balcony waves, that outcome was unprecedented. He calls it the only royal wedding in his career where he did not land a single picture in the papers. Edwards does not claim the ceremony lacked beauty. He argues it was beautiful for the screen. He describes Meghan's delivery as polished and theatrical, a service curated for a global broadcast. That is not a crime, it is a choice. But to him, it marked a shift. Tradition was no longer the spine of the day, image was what millions saw as a modern love story. He experienced as an elegant mirage crafted for trending clips and glossy spreads, a spectacle that drew the eye and left the people in the room feeling peripheral. But that wasn't the whole story. The reception in his recollection sealed the mood. Where royal tables once groaned with abundance, guests encountered tiny photogenic bites, canapes, and dainty sweets that looked chic in magazines and meager in hand. He remembers the mismatch between 1,000-pound outfits and plates that felt like an afterthought. Style eclipsed substance. He says it was the only royal wedding he wanted to leave as quickly as possible. He could not get out of Windsor fast enough, not because he lacked stamina, but because the day, in his view, had turned into a set. He insists the problem wasn't weather or logistics, it was intent. The day felt orchestrated to control frames rather than to welcome witnesses. He says Harry avoided eye lines, shifted angles, and withheld the small courtesies. One more glance, a simple pause, that turned pictures into shared memory. Viewers saw sparkle. Inside, he says, the atmosphere tightened. Joy gave way to management. A wedding should stitch a family together. In his view, this one stitched a narrative and left the fabric strained. And the pattern, he says, did not end at the chapel doors. Invitations cooled. Simple family comforts grew complicated. Instead of relaxed time at royal residences, there were hotels. Instead of easy photographs that mark milestones, there were tightened controls. Grandparents who longed for ordinary moments found schedules and security in the way. Edwards describes showing a palace insider the first press image of Archie on his phone because that was how she was seeing him, secondhand through a screen. He calls it heartbreaking and needless. There's more. In his view, the now famous television interview was not a conversation that invited resolution. It was an event designed to guarantee discussion. He is unsparing about the effect. Claims aired in prime time hardened sympathies and split the audience, while the institution had no meaningful way to answer. He does not ask viewers to dismiss the couple's experiences. He asks them to notice the production around it. Rumours suggest the timing and tone were calibrated to dominate the narrative, and he implies the aim wasn't reconciliation but reach. Whatever you believe, he says, the fallout deepened silence inside the family. And yet he refuses to paint the first chapter as failure. He says Meghan's initial year on the road impressed him. Energetic, engaged, quick to connect with crowds. That early promise is why the later arc stings. In his telling, something that could have blended modern style with royal steadiness bent toward a separate project with its own rules. He imagines how senior figures might have felt, not angry at innovation, but seething at the way it arrived, scorching rituals that usually survive even fierce storms. But that wasn't the whole story either. He wants you to see how small decisions accumulate. A carriage angle, a place card, a portion size, a media plan, none of them explosive on their own. Together, he says, they delivered a message. The crown would no longer be the star of royal moments. The couple would be. When that happens, the choreography that links the institution and the public loosens. The cameras get their spectacle, but the family loses its frame. In his account, the wedding did not usher a couple comfortably into the fold. It launched a strategy. From seating to reception to media handling, the through line was control. Control of images, of narrative, of proximity. That strategy can be powerful, modern, and very effective. It can also be isolating. Edwards speaks with the weary authority of a pit lane mechanic who watched a car flash past on television and noticed up close that the tires were already shredded. The picture looked perfect until you stood in the heat beside it. He isn't pleading for blind nostalgia. He is explaining what it felt like to stand 5 feet from history and be shut out by it. This is the man who captured unguarded smiles on hospital steps, tears at remembrance, and laughter on the balcony, suddenly working a wedding where every classic frame inverted itself at the last second. He says it was not accident, it was intention, and once you accept that premise, the rest, the cooled invitations, the guarded travel plans, the quiet distance between cousins, reads less like drift and more like design. So when Arthur Edwards finally speaks plainly at 85, he is not peddling a bombshell. He is confirming the rumors many viewers have traded for years, that the broadcast fairy tale masked a harsher experience, that a day made for television often exacts a price from the people inside it, that a royal event can be both gorgeous and bruising depending on your seat. The confirmation is not about secret villains. It is about priorities. He is telling you the day chose spectacle over shared memory, and that choice did not stop at the chapel doors. Which leaves a final question. When the most watched stories of a monarchy are managed like premieres, what becomes of the quiet ties that keep a dynasty steady? Perhaps the answer depends on what you think a royal day is for. If it exists to enthrall millions, then the broadcast did its job. If it exists to bind a family and a nation with a common memory, Edwards says this one missed the moment. He did not want to say it for years. Now he has. Whether you agree with every point or not, his vantage point, and close enough to hear the breath and still cut out of the frame, forces a second look at the day we thought we knew. Edwards also contrasts who sat where. He says household stalwarts who had given decades were pushed behind famous newcomers, and that television loved the shot even if the family did not. He mentions celebrities who had barely met the couple taking prime positions, while people the crown relies on watched from the margins. He recalls the technical choices too, arrivals forced onto long glass, even an 800mm lens for simple walk-ups, and a carriage that offered its best profile to the wrong side. He felt the press was being punished and says that feeling was shared widely by colleagues who left Windsor empty-handed. For him, that was a first in royal coverage.